Well, that's why we have
It's
this.
very funny.
That's why we have these dialogues, because it's very important to show that the world is diverse. So you need to press this. Okay. So shall we start? Good evening. Thank you for coming here. I think we'll have a very interesting evening tonight. It's always very interesting, and because it broadens our understanding of how diverse the world is, and I'm glad you will meet Ambassador Guellil, who is the Doctor of Islamic Studies and Economics. And we were discussing right now that for me, it's quite a unique situation because the ambassador was born in the US and was carrying American citizenship for, I don't know, until 14?
No, I'm still American.
Yeah, I mean,
I never lose it.
I mean, until 14, you didn't have German
yes,
citizenship.
I was only American, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm saying in Kyrgyzstan, you would never become an ambassador. What a pity for you. But ambassador lived in the US only until 2 and then moved to US. And she became a doctor of philosophy in Islamic studies and production economics in 1985. And then what was also interesting for me, the first job was business. I was sales department manager at Bosch. And everyone here knows Bosch, and everyone has something from Bosch at home, I think. And then Ambassador went through the diplomatic training courses for 2 years and started her work in Istanbul and then returned several times to Turkey during her career, which included work in the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Germany, embassy in Ecuador, embassy in Turkey, embassy in Chad, Cyprus. Cyprus was the first ambassadorship, right? During the years of 2011 and 14. And then ambassador was working as an ambassador for 3 years in Chad and also in 3 years in Mauritania. So it's like Central and Western Africa.
Sahel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about that, so I will be happy if you talk about that too. And since August 2021, Ambassador works in the Embassy of Germany in Kyrgyz Republic. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you for having me. Salamat zdarba to everybody. Здравствуйте.
Yeah, Salamat zdarba everybody sounds very good. I like it.
I'm glad I can use my English, which is not as good as my Turkish, but okay.
Well, I'm sure your Turkish is better than ours. But so I'll give you several questions, and then we'll give questions to the audience.
Okay.
And as I understand, we can ask different, questions from different fields. So it will not be a very formal conversation about the relationship between Germany and Kyrgyzstan and all that.
There is no stupid question, and you can test how good a diplomat I am by asking me provocative questions.
Yeah, with the previous German ambassador, when we had this diplomatic dialogue, after that she told me, oof, I was afraid they will be asking provocative questions. So with you, we should try, right? As you said. Okay, guys, let's be brave. So just to kickstart, how does it work with the German ambassadors? Did you have a choice? Did you apply for the position? How exactly did you end up coming to Kyrgyzstan? Because your Central Asia was not in the previous career of yours, right? And how were you choosing? How it happens? What were other maybe options at that time?
Well, I had spent 2 thrilling postings, challenging postings in Africa and the Sahel region, a time when I realized that we awfully lack expertise and competence in that region, which is of enormous importance to the stability not only of Africa but also of Europe because of migration waves in front of our doors. And so I offered, I mean, this is hardship postings and not really a very comfortable life to stay, but I was refused to discuss it. I had to apply for the list of vacancies, and the top on the list was Kyrgyzstan. And then they were nice enough, and in some more than 30 years of my diplomatic life, for the first time, they gave me what I had chosen as a nicety, and this is my last posting before retirement. They asked me if I wanted to stay 2 years and have another posting afterwards, and I said, no, please, I need a little bit to calm down and not change all the time and start everything all over again. High risk, I mean, when they sent me to Africa, everything almost was new to me. They like marketing in a company that will always sell you something as tailored for you. Yeah, you have this competence and that competence, and they will inflate even what you have been doing before, or they might argue that now is the chance to do something what you have never done before, and so forth. But this time, I mean, amongst the available postings, I chose Kyrgyzstan, and I'm very happy I did. I am very happy here, due to many factors. Actually, they tried a little bit to sell me Dushanbe, and I refused. I don't want to explain, but by instinct, I said I could have put Dushanbe on top of the list if by the time I really invested a lot of thinking what I would prefer if I could choose, and I did not choose it. Why should I change my mind now? I'm a little bit conservative. Yeah, I don't want to now to explain to you the decision-making process, and this is how I ended up in Kyrgyzstan.
It's interesting. I had interviewed several ambassadors who moved here after Tajikistan, and they were saying, wow, you have such a great country, and they were very sincere. After Tajikistan, you know, it's a very good country. And you're moving here from very challenging positions in Africa, so I'm sure you like it here. But how do you explain to Germans what Kyrgyzstan is? I mean, what's special about the country? Why should they like the country? I will try to visit it.
Well, most people don't even know that there is Kyrgyzstan in the middle of Asia, and they are maybe they put it, if they know the name, rather close to Caucasus or something, and they know there is a connection if they know a little bit to Turkey, and then they're very astonished when I tell them bordering China. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Most Germans know something about Xinjiang, yeah, because of the Uyghur. I don't know. Xinjiang is somehow known. But then you can explain them Silk Road system. There is, I mean, as little as we learn about Asia in school, but the trade routes and the big changes through the discovery of the sea routes, I mean, this somehow sank in. And of course, everybody knows Genghis Khan. So first thing I always say, this is not home of Genghis Khan, but you get very close when you, you recall what you learned about the Mongols and the big migration waves. Something that we were taught in school when I was young was the let's say, the different eras that European history went through. And you can go further back, but start with zero of our time. And then 500 years later, that was the big migration away from Asia, an overhaul of the complete setup of Europe, which was, with regard to civilization, dragging their feet. I mean, there were the Romans and the Greek, but the rest was kind of underdeveloped, to be Christianized a long time after. And this is where we actually inherited a lot of Central Asian cultures, but most people do not know. Today we attribute proverbs that are typically Central Asian, like the fish starts stinking from that, to Goethe and Schiller and our big authors, but they actually took it from literature that they had come across, or popular proverbs, but that migrated actually with the tribes. And you know that these tribes ended up in Spain, the West Goths, and Italy, but most people are not aware of it, and today it's not even really taught in school anymore, unfortunately. But then you have 500, then you have 1,000, the migration of the Turkish tribes, which also provoked the Crusades. This was the turn, of the time, very important. And then you have 1500, the peak of the Renaissance. In Europe, the rebellion within the Catholic Church and the creation of the Protestant Church with all the wars, that were based in that, how can I say, separatist thinking. And so you can virtually cut the last 2,000 years in time slots of 500 years, everyone, very easy. Then 1500, you had the invention of printing, you had the first big inventions, by the way, a boost in weapons industry, which also changed the setup of empires. The ones who did not manage to industrialize throughout that period, and there is a very famous author, Orhan Pamuk, who wrote some of his first books about this phase, the clash of civilization, and it was the one of the ones industrializing and being able in the end to produce weapons of mass destruction against the ones who had famous warriors but were not able to counter such a development. Like the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was not the sick man at the Bosporus. At some time it ended growing, but it was not a real threat anymore with regard to territorial conquests. But it apparently did not manage to the transition to an industrial age, and that made them weak actually and this was a time where conflicts were solved by war. And well, I stop here now, but so if you want to explain where Kyrgyzstan is and what Kyrgyzstan is, normally my starting point is this migration, to recall a little bit, and it makes click, most people can follow. And the next thing is, Germans are enjoy a high level of prosperity, and they travel a lot. And many Germans are not this typical mass traveling people, but they are interested in culture and nature. And in this regard, Kyrgyzstan is a perfect destination. And for those who have not discovered yet, if you show them pictures, if you tell them, send them some links, they will get immediately attracted. It's magnetic. And all my friends who come visiting, who have different backgrounds, young or old, they say, wow. I just had a friend visiting whom I had met in Africa, and she has traveled from New Zealand to Latin America. She's going to go to Brazil now. And she said, wow, this is just wow. And I have many once in a lifetimes here, and you might believe me, I've seen a lot in my life. So this is about how we describe, and Kyrgyzstan is unique in a way because you have a whole list of unique things to offer, and not many countries can do so. It might be the music genes in your blood that almost everybody can sing, and with beautiful voices, even people who have never gone to a music school, And you have this tradition, and like here, Ololo House is, the best example, very modern at the same time, very open-minded. There is the specifics of a nomadic background for many of you, and even those who are not ethically Kyrgyz, they've grown up with this, and they're also impregnated, penetrated by this mood and behavior. I feel it as a foreigner from the distance. And you have this extremely, you can say, hostile environment, climate, temperature, but at the other on the other side, an extremely welcoming nature. Nature is almost explosive after a strong winter. This is the cradle of biological mutation. Most bulb plants, flowers come from Central Asia. Apple, apricot, pears, whatever fruit almost is the ordinary average fruit in Germany has its roots here. And why? I believe, I'm not a biologist, my older brother is, and he's an environmentalist. He's very interested, moving in this community of green people. And they argue that this is due to the specific circumstances plants have to be very resilient to resist, which gives them the talent for adaptation. Same thing for the people here, I feel. And this is something very unique. You don't have this in any other moderate climate region. I stop here.
We have this special climate in all areas, in culture, in politics, and yeah, just like all these apples are surviving, we people also are very resilient. And when you came here, and thank you, this was a very informative answer for me. It's also helpful when I talk to Europeans. Yeah, I will also use this information about the migration, and the walnut was originated from here, and a lot of things that people are eating around the world. So when you arrived to Kyrgyzstan, you know, this last years, I've seen the explosive. It feels like an explosive growth of relations, like meetings, visits from Kyrgyzstan to Germany, from Germany to Kyrgyzstan. We had the visit of President Steinmeier recently, and one of his meetings was in Ololo, Erkindik, so it was a big honor for us too. And I like that it was around creative industries very much, because he was drawing graffiti and meeting a lot of with the people, not with the government only. So what's happening there, and I mean, why do we see this growth of mutual visits and contacts, and what are the main targets for your period here? What would you say your mission is about?
Well, first of all, there is a Kyrgyz factor. I arrived here not long after, let's say, another revolution, rebellion, change of system, new constitution, very different from the previous one. And, well, yes, we have a boost now of contacts. Took a little time to get over this transition and a certain mistrust, instability, and what's it all about. And, of course, we are worrying about certain trends of diminishing the space for civil society and, well, basic freedoms, yeah? And, well, this is one part. And then, of course, the Atambayev period, and this is also due to the fact that he was the boss of a party that was very well connected in the international arena, because they are part of the family of social democrats, which is the Socialist International, has links to every other country. And I don't know if you are aware of the fact that Atambayev went to Spain upon the invitation of the Socialist, Social Democrat Prime Minister of Spain. Yeah, this is the connections that count. So he was very popular in Europe across that, but funnily enough, he was very good friends with our Chancellor Merkel, who's Christian Democrat. But I mean, difference actually between Christian Democrats and Social Democrats is not so big, and they had a coalition. I mean, our President Steinmeier was here 2 times as foreign minister, yeah? He was foreign minister in a coalition with Angela Merkel, yeah? So they were not too far apart anyway. But because he gave the impression to be very liberal and he wanted good contacts with Western countries, he was very, and I think continues to be very popular with his networks in Europe. And anyway, so there we had, I don't know how often he was in Germany, but several times, and Merkel was here, and everybody was here too. The revolution and the new start meant a break, a real break, yeah? And hard to digest, yeah? And there is a little bit, when I arrived, there remains the feeling that even though Kyrgyzstan appears to be kind of stable, there is a high risk, given the mentality and the history, yeah, that any time something might happen and overhaul the system again. And we are, in that aspect, we are very conservative. We are afraid of changes. We want to change everything without changing anything, we sometimes say, especially Germans, yeah? Not risk-taking, not saying new start, new chance. Priority is what we lose, yeah? And I mean, no interest, no German companies' interests were at stake, yeah? There were no investments, yeah? The Kumtor case, of course, was also blown up a lot as a problem case, to frighten up investors. But every other businessman from Germany whom I meet tells me this is not really an argument for us to not invest because it's a completely different sector. Forget about it. We want, and this is another was stability of the legal system, reliability, equality, transparency, blah, blah, blah. We want to have a functioning justice system, etc., pp. So this has been overshadowing a little bit and slowing down. But then acceleration of activities were mainly due to the Russian aggression on Ukraine, and this is one of my priorities now. When I came here, that was not a topic, even so there were problems, etc., etc., but it did not really affect let's say, the instructions for the individual missions here. Now it's completely different. We, of course, try to convince, we try to explain our arguments, we try to get support for our positions in the international arena. I cannot count even how many démarches I had to do jointly very often with other like-minded countries, as we call them, on matters of candidatures or voting or resolutions. And, well, the intensity of interest in Central Asia has completely changed ever since. We have, we are talking about, due to the escalation of the situation in the Near East, we are being explained what the Balfour Declaration means. De facto, we had something like a Balfour system. We said Francophone Africa is France's backyard. Anglophone, UK, a little bit US, more UK. And Central Asia was Russian. Previous Soviet Union, we left it. Nobody really questions, argued, blended. When I was in Turkey, many times they made a little bit fun of Turkey, trying to win over Turkic states. They told me this is a lost cause and this Turanism is outdated and a little bit naive, and they are, well, anyway. But I see the Turkish influence logically. They never left the region to Russia, and I think in business they were quite successful. They're everywhere around, and with the especially Turkish Airlines flight that broke the monopoly of Aeroflot. Fortunately, we have them today, because now that the Russian system is under sanctions, we wouldn't have a means to personally meet or whatever. That's very vital. It's not only roads; it's also the airline system that plays a vital role. And so Europeans kept out by and large. We included them in the schemes. We always, Germany always opted for multilateralism, so we need partners, we need continuous exchange. And no doubt about it, we were amongst the first to recognize independent Kyrgyzstan as a sovereign state, to establish diplomatic relations, of course, but it was not really a close partnership. Now we desperately try to change the picture. And the more you perhaps observed the visit of President Macron in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, the French have only opened an embassy here a couple of years ago. This was a non-flyer for them, no real interest. It's changing completely. They want to get in with billions of investments by private companies that are state-owned. Energy sector, uranium is also state-owned. It's formally it's private, but it belongs to the state. And this is big players. And before it was Africa, and now they feel they're losing Africa. Finally, they should have noticed before. It's very late, and so they try to find new partners, new arenas, and this is good, I think. This is very good, but we must hurry up to not, how how can I say, to be too slow to compete with China and Russia. That's clear, and even Turkey. Yeah, we must become concrete. This is a difficult endeavor, I find. I'm very frank about it. Yeah, I don't think that the European Union line, and there is a lot of inside debate and talk, the Brussels line is efficient enough to implement our objectives. But as a result, we as Germans, we said we are not going to wait for the Europeans, we are going to go ahead. And Steinmeier was the first European Union president who came here. Chaparov had visited Budapest before, and the relation with Hungary, which is a difficult European Union partner, is special. But he was the first. I mean, Steinmeier came here and I said, I don't care, I'm going to establish a bilateral relationship. If this is what they want, we are going to say yes. And that, I think, is more than symbolic. That is, that is a strong message.
So Germany has a lot of lines of cooperation with Kyrgyzstan, not only with the government, but also with the people here. Like a lot of people went to au pair, and they gained huge experience. I know top managers of companies in Kyrgyzstan who went through au pair, and for them it was a life-changing experience. And au pair never seemed to be a very important thing, but it was really important. Now we have DAAD, we have GIZ, we have Friedrich Ebert, Konrad Adenauer, and Hans Seidel foundations. So we have so many different German projects here. If you say that Germany is more interested in cooperation, can we expect that through these lines, there will be like increase of resources and increase of number of exchanges, more students will be going to Germany? How will it reflect on the humans' lives, not only the official visits?
Well, this is why I'm saying we must become more concrete, and well, there is a lot of space to improve. I personally doubt that also through previous experiences, including the European Union member Cyprus, that subsidies or donations will improve the situation. And especially here in Kyrgyzstan, I'm left with the impression, and it's not a preliminary one, it's based on some sort of maturing professional wisdom that the Kyrgyz people have all the human resources to dive off on their own. And on the contrary, that offering too much support will only bring about deceptions when we do not answer positively to requests. Yeah? And it's not about getting gifts, it's about having the capability to do things on your own. It's a question of pride too. Yeah. So I believe this even technical cooperation, financial cooperation is not vital. What is important is to promote business and creativity, yeah, to capacitate, to help you become autonomous, independent, sovereign, as we say, yeah. And this whole, I feel in the context, because throughout 30 years, the international community has left the Kyrgyz governments with the impression, we are feeding you with money when you are in need, yeah? We will finance your infrastructure, we will finance your education system, your health system, etc., pp., which of course should be for free, yeah? Should be free for everybody. But I don't think this is the way to move forward. We have, unfortunately, because it came kind of fast, come upon the decision that Kyrgyzstan is developed enough to phase out bilateral cooperation. Problem for me, for my embassy, for my staff now is that we are not really decreasing the amount of money invested through the public means, but to shift it to regional and sectoral endeavors. That means that I do not have bilateral projects that I might get knowledgeable about easily. Yeah, I could visit, I could go, I could meet the people, but that now I have to read all the nonsense that my colleagues in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, maybe Ulaanbaatar produce, because it's all of concern for the regional approach. Yeah, so it duplicates or triples the amount of time I need to understand what's going on. And of course, the instrument gets more and more diffuse. Yeah? It's hard to understand. This, for instance, we have this Global Gateway initiative in Brussels. I swear I don't get what it's all about. Yeah? About fusing and assembling and I don't know. And it's in part, it's all funds that had already been granted and they are now repeated, put into a new basket, and we talk about Euroteam and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know what they're doing actually. I don't know what they're offering. Yeah, they inform us about conferences and traveling and new agreements and papers and issues of interest like connectivity, but what does it mean? Will they finance a feasibility study? How do they answer to very legitimate and I think understandable requests of the governments, not only Kyrgyzstan and the region? We want to build a railway, we want to have a dam project, we have this and that. What are we going to do? Yeah? And now this within the regional context forces us to know what's going on until the Caucasus everywhere without knowing what concretely they're going to invest in Kyrgyzstan. I had today to comment on two projects, one on journalism, the Deutsche Welle Academy. Oh, it's Cambodia, Myanmar, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, of course, and a number of other countries. And it's 100 pages. And I have to find out where is Kyrgyzstan and what actually will they do here and what are the partners and this and that. Then I ask myself, have I ever met the partners? Yeah? Who is the people they are addressing? Oh, the goals sound magnificent. Yeah, perfect, everything. Yeah? And we want to promote this and this, but how? Tell me how. Yeah? Where can we interact? Where can I support? I'm not against. But this is now, this is shifting. We are all moving. Yeah? I don't know if this is the end. I don't believe it. It's the end of the changes. But it's a phase where I have certain difficulties also to explain our partners in government what's it all about. But we are increasing. We are increasing only in a way that's hard to understand for partners, for you, for me.
So it's becoming less concrete, like opposite of being more concrete.
Yes, I'm afraid this is true.
Well, just one small example is visas. If you say there should be more movement between businesses, etc., like Americans have chosen this strategy of increasing the period of visa. They're giving these 5-year visas to Kyrgyz citizens. I know a lot of people who have these visas. Now they want to even increase this term. But whenever I apply for Schengen visa, I get visa exactly for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. And it's a shame, you know, because like I go to Britain, they give me visa to 180 days, although I'm going for a short conference. And I can come multiple times. Of course, it like increases my interest to do business with Britain, right? Why it's not changing? I mean, I'm going for more than 20 years to Schengen. It's always like this. Why is it so conservative, and what will happen?
Do you dare to ask for a long-term visa? You should when you apply, because we react to applications. Yeah, you can explain. I have been in the Schengen region for a long time. I'm also regularly going to Germany or whatever. Yeah, and now I'm going again for a short trip. It would be wise to issue a long-term visa for short stays, normal procedure. And I don't think you will be refused. You might have, they can see in your passport. But if you only ask to go for a trip, of course, they will go for the trip. And then when I ask, why were you so so tight, then they will say, but the person only asked for 2 weeks, so why should we give something else? Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a lot more difficult for young people who have not been yet. Even I'm a little bit, if I know now, I have better context with the business community, and I know somebody who tells me I want to go and I want to establish business relationships. I tell them, look guys, I'm the only one here who worked in business. Normally business relationships are front-loaded. In the beginning you need a lot of contacts, and once you know the partner you can do it by phone or whatever. Yeah. But in the beginning you must, for all reasons of orientations, you must sound out, and it's not only the visit of a fair. If you meet 3 businessmen and they tell you to come in a month and then you cannot go because you need whatever time to get to get visas, that's ridiculous. Yeah. So be a little bit reasonable. Somebody who wants to stay and not come back, would stay first time he sets foot on German ground. Yeah, and no matter if he has he or she has a visa for 7 days or 7 years. Yeah, and we of course, by the way, we do not have a lot of difficulties with Kyrgyz citizens. The pressure is increasing. Now, my concern is that Germany definitely, and this is no secret, this is publicly announced, needs labor force, human resources. And it's not only about skilled labor force, qualified labor force, it is really about labor force. Yeah? And sometimes the necessary qualifications can be achieved rather easily. Some fields are a little bit more difficult, it depends, there is a scale. But there is one condition. If you do not go as a tourist, you need the consent of the immigration authorities, and they need the consent of the agencies for employment or university. Yeah? So whenever you are not a tourist, but you go to make money, even au pairs, you need this consent. So all you do is you hand in the documents at the embassy through our service provider, of course, Visametric, then it comes to us and somebody decides. In that case, we cannot decide. It will be a national visa, and we have to cross-check. We cannot, our system does not provide the technical possibility to print a visa without somebody pushing the button green light on the other end. As simple as that. So if in case, like with the delegation of Prime Minister Japarov, who traveled for this economic council to Hamburg with 64 business people, in case we don't get a reply, we cannot issue a Schengen visa. Then we are back to the national visa, have to change the input one by one in the computer system, and then upon our own responsibility, issue a very short-term national visa, one entry and only the time of the purpose. Yeah? Which is a difficulty. That's the system as it stands. So idea would be, now if we want to recruit, there are 2 main obstacles, or we call it the hole in the needle. The elephant must get through. You need the visa, in general, but in order to get the documents accepted, you need a language test certificate, because you need the language. It's not that they always say you need to know German. No, you have to present a document, as simple as that. A very banal thing. Where do you get the certificate from? I must admit, you cannot guarantee that you can pass a language test, because we do not have the capacities to accept more than 5 people on average per week, and it will only be 2 or 3 sessions a year. It's ridiculous. We have a special commissioner for the recruitment or for the negotiation of agreements with partner countries, for the recruitment of human resources. The man comes home with a trophy, we have an agreement, and then the embassy gets a shitstorm because the visas are not issued. But it's not our fault, because we need the language certificates. That's our instructions. Yeah? This is, nobody cares, they don't listen. Our chancellor, I saw him during our ambassadors conference, is a war of the visa problems, because we will have more visas to proceed and we don't get extra staff. We have an enormous staff shortage worldwide. This is also why already years back we went to the service provider thing. Yeah, and this is a progress, but it's not enough. It's still not enough. I think, Alina, do you know the quantity of our visa application has increased by 25% last year? Now digest it with a number of 4 local staff. 25% is a lot, would mean at least 1 person more. Yeah, we don't get it. There are none. Yeah, very, very difficult. Yeah,
but it's also because of the citizens of Russia moving through Kyrgyzstan to Germany.
Well, that's an extra burden. I don't even count.
You don't count that, okay.
Yeah, but this is just the Kyrgyz side. Plus the problematic, it takes a lot of time with specific regulation. Now they're going to change the visa system. And they ask us, what do we need? How is it going? We don't know yet. We haven't even received. We know the law, but not the decrees on how the law is going to implement it in administration. Yeah, that's very important. We don't know yet, and we will have to work with it. That will slow down procedure. It's very complicated, and we have this federal system that everybody has been so proud of and promoting and telling everybody it means more democracy. It means, in first place, to me, and I look back on long experience, a lot of bureaucracy and not democracy. Yeah, we are creating obstacles, preventing us from achieving our political goals. Very difficult. We have one discussion round on immigration, on asylum again, the Chancellor, and 16 heads of federal states. Outcome, nothing concrete. They all agree, in part to disagree, yeah? And they all say, we have to do something, but they don't find a common denominator to how to put it into reality, into concrete actions. Because of the difficult, even in Brussels, we always have to go back to all the federal states and blah, 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 blah. And it's so time consuming. Yeah, it really has become a trap. I don't want to now to outline a negative picture of my country that I represent, but I want to be honest. I want to be transparent and tell you how I perceive things. Yeah, I think it's needed.
Thank you. Okay, it's now become more clear, and I think it's very practical. I think for many people who go for business or study, it's now more clear how to apply. Just like one last question from me before we go to the audience, to talk about different matter. I'm really interested. Can you explain a little bit about your experience in Africa? Because when we met last time, you told me a lot of things that we don't know at all here, and both Chad and Mauritania are countries of military coups, and still they have the governments and the presidents and all leaders who are basically are working as dictators. They are irreplaceable. In Chad, he's the son of the previous president, right? And they are only replaced by military coups, and I'm really afraid at a certain point that Kyrgyzstan might turn into such a country, because I don't see that the tendency is in the opposite direction. So can you tell about this experience and maybe highlight a little bit about Africa, like Central, Western Africa, what's happening, what we should know about these countries, and what Kyrgyzstan maybe could learn there? And then we'll go to the audience.
I learned that also is the case for Cyprus, who was a British colony, at the time of the creation of Israel, and they maintained military bases or land in Cyprus that was not before the Brexit, never part of the European Union, like Gibraltar that you might know, It was not even so, It was a very complicated constellation. It was linked to the Crown in the UK. It was part of British territory, but it was not under European legislation. Left outside, most people don't know, because there is specific things. Now, what I learned in Africa, that colonial times are really a very bad, heavy legacy. And in a way, Kyrgyzstan shares the fate of a colonial past. We often talk about Soviet Union, but it started with an imperial Tsarist empire who acted like everybody else. There was not much difference between what the Tsar in Moscow did in the neighboring countries to what the British or the French or even the Portuguese and Germany, until we had to give it up after First World War, did in Africa. Yeah? Now, in part, it is because a lot of bad things happened during colonial times, which of course is a burden, but also the mentality that evolved from that everything that goes wrong now in Africa is the blame of everything that's going wrong in Africa is put on the colonial powers, and this is not the case. Yeah, this is not correct. In part, but it's a very toxic blend. Yeah, you can always find excuses. We have corruption because the colonial powers brought corruption. We had this slavery because the colonial powers traded slaves. Yeah. Well, the Africans traded slaves before the colonial powers came, and most of them sold their own people to the traders. Yeah. So it's a blend. It's a mix. But because of that legacy, there is no neutral, objective approach. Everybody has an ideology behind. And of course, Western powers keep insisting, Germany included, yeah, that's our mantra, that Western powers brought civilization. Now,
I heard this story somewhere.
Want to jump, yeah? When I came here, I sometimes even felt ashamed that I was surprised that everything was so different here. Why? There is an opera, there is a philharmonic, there is sports courts everywhere. Women my age play volleyball. Few do so in Germany because sports was common. Most women, at least in urban society like Bishkek, it was quite natural that they went to work. Yeah, in Germany, not at all. Yeah, 50% of my age bracket, I'm 64, never worked. They married. And they never had children even. Wow, yeah? You could argue my mom did not really work all through her life because she brought up children and had to take care of them. That's an important role. But most women don't even have the excuse that they had children for not having worked. What a society is this? So, and then, again, what other achievement? Quite a good infrastructure, even train system. Where do you have trains in Africa? A few in the British, because the British had a fable like in India for railways to exploit better. The French never even managed to have a single railway in 27 francophone countries. Even so, they were exploiting wood and heavy goods, yeah, minerals and everything. What else? You don't have music schools. You don't. When the French left in 1960, they had no functioning health system. They had no education system. They had a few schools that trained people who are meant to work in French administration, but no general schooling system, no public schooling system. In a number of countries, analphabetism is still between 50 and 90, in Chad, 90% analphabets. Yeah? No electricity networks. Well, when I came to Chad, Debbie boasted of having 3,000 kilometers of asphalted roads in a country 3.5 times the size of Germany.
Wow.
Yeah, asphalted roads. And even the Saudi embassy, we had the privilege to have our embassy / residence the same road where the presidency was, so it was an asphalt road. But the Turkish embassy, the Saudi embassy, they had sand roads, yeah, and potholes in front of the residences and the embassies. Yeah, this is the situation. So this is 60 years after they left. How must it have looked like when they left? Nothing. Yeah. Very often a very long time of presence, but no infrastructure, no nothing. And I felt a little bit ashamed because I had grown up too with the impression that wherever the Soviet Union was, there was misery all along. Yeah? And if there was some sort of emancipation, you have a specific past of respect towards women in the nomadic culture. By the way, same thing in very conservative religious Mauritania. They even had a matriarchate system. Yeah. Very interesting. And to abandon polygamy, to abandon many things. I mean, maybe there is a lot to criticize. Not maybe, there is a lot to criticize, but in comparison to what we left behind, even in the Christian countries, it's not Muslim, it's very often Christian terrain, but they left behind, this is light years apart. So I said, wow, altogether, progress, I mean, the Soviet Union, against all the odds, brought a lot of progress and change. And I'm sometimes, with regard to Afghanistan, for instance, where the Western community claims that progress for women was brought about by our interventionist engagement, I think in the very short time that there was a very brutal pro-Soviet rule with Najibullah in Afghanistan, this is when the progress came. And we just kept it up and pampered a small group of very pro-Western people, but across the board, they enforced, of course. They could use methods that we couldn't have used, yeah? But this is even the part of the army was the ones, or the secret services that we couldn't later abandon because they were the only skilled ones. They were all KGB people, yeah? National security people or people who had served in the army. We had to accept them. We didn't write it on pen cards, but that as a matter of fact was the reality. But so if you compare, Africa really was left alone with a very heavy legacy. And then there is, of course, even though, again, there is a certain vanity because we defend values, we invested a lot in development, but it also meant a tight jacket. No space of maneuver to develop sovereignty. We told them democracy is all about elections, and sometimes we say and we applaud there have been democratic election, but if you dig down deeper, you will realize it is not reflecting the people's will, yeah? You count voices. Sometimes many people don't even have access to elections. They don't even know whom they elect, yeah, due to feudal systems or whatever, yeah? This is not democracy. And now when people stand up on their heels, like in Mali, and I followed it, I was in the neighboring country, Mauritania, and there's lots of Malians, by the way, as migrant work. There's a lot of interior migration in Africa, a lot, yeah? People, Africans always used to walk and move around and blah, 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 did not know frontiers, yeah? And for months and months, there were big demonstrations, millions of people, women included, going to the streets and say, we have to get rid of this president who ended up successfully in elections that the European Union and everybody else recognized, but it was fake elections. Everybody knew in the neighborhood, yeah? And then when they did, we said, no, we don't recognize them. Our good friend and legitimate president, we must protect him. Same thing now happened in Niger. There were not so much mass demonstration, but apparently all the security institutions and the people are backing the putschist government, yeah? We have a difficulty there with the definition of democracy. We had in 2010 an intervention or a civil war in the Côte d'Ivoire, in the Ivory Coast, which brought about a regime of Ouattara. Ouattara ran for a third term, which is banned by the constitution, nobody more than 2 terms. We said, well, but he's a good president and he was elected properly. Hey, this is a breach of constitution, this is a coup. Full stop. Now, Debbie, when I was in START after 30 years of authoritarian rule, brutal, yeah, human rights violations, he got killed. The legend runs, the myth runs, he got killed by rebels. And fortunately, the French protected the capital from being overrun. Well, I'm pretty sure, and I know many details, what happens through insiders and friends at that weekend, yeah? By the way, after he had been killed, they declared him winner of the past presidential elections, but the result had been clear before the elections even started, as before. It was his 6th term. Yeah, he got killed by his own kin, I'm sure. Yeah? And more articles appear now here and there. Despite of that, the European Union and the French and the Americans never called this a coup. What happened? They abolished the constitution. They dismissed all members of government. Yeah, they published a new charter for a transition phase, which could be okay. Yeah, and promised that the transition man, the general adoptive child of Debbie, considered as a son, would step down and not apply. Then they staged a coup, déjà vu. I had lived the same thing in 2018 when I was there. A national forum, and the national forum all selected people, yeah, of course, favorable or obedient to the regime, decided that they wanted him to stay. And then they said, people want him to stay. National forum, you could call your group a national forum and say, wow, you're voting, I already select you according to that vote. You want me to stay? Hands up. I must
Who
obey.
am I to resist?
That's the way. Yeah, this is how it works. Yeah. So you cannot even compare this to even. I try to understand Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan too in the neighborhood. You cannot even compare this to what happens here. It's no question of what people write. It's not being published even. People don't know. Nobody knows anymore what's true, what is not, what's circulating. Now, of course, outside interventions come in, propaganda campaign. It's all also an arena for the conflict between the West and Russia now. Everybody trying to win over hearts and sympathies. It's very complicated, very complicated. And which makes me rather pessimistic with regard to development perspective for the African continent, but it's still very much en vogue. Politicians are under pressure. Migration waves are enormous. We cannot handle them. We try to organize immigration through legislation, but all these people come by illegal ways. Yeah. Many of them risk their lives. Many of them lose their lives. We regularly had hundreds and thousands of people, dead bodies being swept to the shore in Mauritania because they go in very small boats, 14 meters, it's about, no more than that, and maybe 200 people on board, no drink, no food, no nothing, yeah? And when they can't navigate it because something breaks down, small outside Yamaha motor, maybe, then of course, it's horrible, yeah? And so the instruments that we apply do not really cover the problem, yeah? Ants are not really an answer to the problem. Answer would be, my mantra is to develop the countries in the way that people will stay and see perspectives, but they don't. And now it's all shifting to criminal activities. This is something I also warn against here in the region. Organized crime can get out of size, has gotten out of size already. It might not appear so much on the surface, but that's very, very dangerous. It will not be government anymore, but people who are pulling the threads behind the scenes. And migration is a big business. Smuggling is a big business. Yeah? If people are desperate for income resources, that has a strong impact. And this is the case in Africa. For 20, 30 years, they have been smuggling Latin American cocaine through Africa. That sounds crazy. Why? Why not go direct? Because this is a safe haven for illegal activities. And you have mercenaries all around. Yeah? So a very strong signal when things start going bad for me is if you have criminal gangs who appear to be mercenaries that you can hire, rent out. I've been told that everybody's talking about the Wagner Group, that 35 oligarchs in Russia, for instance, dispose of their own paramilitary. Wow, very dangerous. Yeah. In some countries, you have it in the form of rebels, like we had the PKK in Turkey, yeah, which was consider terrorist, but it's something that is part of the society of a country and a threat, yeah? For stability, security, for individual prosperity, because you get caught. If you do not belong to the rebels, they will hunt you. If you do, the government will hunt you, yeah? And if you want it or not, you cannot stay neutral, yeah? You need, in some systems, in order to be protected, if the national system is failing, only help is a gang, yeah? So they hire the troops out, and then gold. Next thing is gold. A lot of wealth.
Yeah, thank you. It's such an extensive answer. I feel that we are not completely failed state anymore.
No, you are not.
Yeah, there is always someone to compare with, right? And thank you. It's a lot of information to digest, but I'm sure audience has also questions. I'll come and give you a mic. What? Huh? You want the question?
Hello. Thank you a lot for your presentation. It was really cool. My name is Mokambekov Aktan. The thing is, at the moment, I'm at a stage where I have to apply to some universities, and at the moment, the primary option is going to Germany. I wanted to ask you about the things that you would recommend to a potential student who wants to get into the new country, new environment, and about the things that I should consider in order to make this experience as useful and good for me in the long term as possible. Thank you.
Maybe it's very general advices. I mean, I very much respect from the impressions I have gathered here, the strength of the individual strengths of Kyrgyz. Maybe because you also have these nomadic genes to adapt to different situations. This is why the au pair stories are, by and large, all of them I have come across success stories. You are the best ambassadors of your country. Everybody tells me, I've ever came across, even in the larger family, Kyrgyz au pair says, oh, they're so nice, they are so respectful, they are so efficient, they don't make fuss about normal things, they're good with people, they are social, etc. So I think what you should do, use this talent for socializing. Meet as many Germans as you can and go and work for a living. That's very easy because we lack labor skill. In my time, it was very hard to get a job, even a low-paid job, to have an extra income. I had my sort of financial basis enough to survive, but extras like traveling or buying books or something, impossible. So I always, all through my student life, I worked, yeah? Many things, even cleaning, whatever, salesperson somewhere, collecting lots of experience. You come across very different people. You will not only be amongst privileged students or this and that, but you'll see the dark sides of normal, ordinary, average life. Yeah? You meet people struggling, having financial difficulties, colleagues, etc., raising families, and I think I'm positive, or I'm optimistic that you'll make friends, yeah, and that's very important. That's the first step to success. Really engage yourself, yeah, and everybody will respect you. Work is always the best, how can I say, passport to get in, yeah, and remain inclusive. Also, show empathy, feel and show empathy for somebody else who has more difficulties than you, and use your chances, learn whatever you can, yeah? I paid a fellowship for a Chadian, a young talented Chadian man, and I told him, promise me when you go to France, French was also one of his Arabic and French mother tongues, learn English. Without English, you'll not get anywhere. He failed to do so. I'm very disappointed. Yeah, he got married, he has a nice family, he's working, it seems, but I said, you miss something. It would be so easy in France to learn English. Why don't you do it? Why don't you go for it? Yeah? So use the possibility to really master German, not to become an interpreter. And try to make, as networking is important, try to learn from other people. Yeah? Their Germany is still a very open society, and young people can be wonderful. There is these start-up communities, there is so many meeting places like here. The Ololo House is something extraordinary, and you might not easily come across something like the Ololo Planet, but similar things. Yeah, you have all the spectrum of possibilities, and also doing sports. Yeah, physical training. That's not only a conservative German approach that to say that only a healthy mind is only in a healthy body. That's reality until now. And all the ones who don't follow these principles, they're losers. Yeah, try to make the difference. Try to find people who are role models for you. Yeah. And by the way, you will be an excellent messenger promoting your country. Every single example counts. Like with Germans, we still profit from this enormous reputation we won after the Second World War. Many people are not aware that our society, like any other one, is undergoing changes. But observe it, watch it, see what's negative. Not to judge, not to say I'm a lot better. That's not the point, but to learn, to improve yourself. Yeah, you cannot learn by successes. You learn by mistakes. Yeah, of course, but you can also observe other people's mistakes. You have to make choices. Yeah, and but don't have them tell you cannot have everything. Yeah, sometimes people try to contain your ambitions and tell you cannot have everything. I say step by step, but I can try. Yeah. I can try. You can still advance a lot if you have a goal, but you have to have goals, not just do things because you are being told to do so. Don't wait for somebody else to organize your life. This is what you can do. There you have a lot of freedom. Be also, I was brought up with a very critical mind. Even in school, it was kind of forbidden to learn things by heart. We always had to ask questions. And sometimes we lacked the platform, yeah, to judge. But it's changing now. People are a little bit afraid if people ask too many questions. You challenge their comfort zone. Life can be so much easier if you accept everything around you and you do like everything around you. Have the courage to go against the tide sometimes. Not all the time. Still, I think there is a tendency, there is a certain vanity too, to say the foreigner who is behaving strange, yeah? Strange means in a funny way, maybe, different, does not have the right to have a very prominent exposure. People might mind, taste it a little bit. That does not mean you are shy or to be afraid. I think this is a little bit the normal attitude of average Kyrgyz people, to be themselves. Be yourself at the same time. Okay, that's a lot of answers, but yeah.
Hello, my name is Sagerim. I have a question. Why you choose this professional diplomat?
Well, many of my colleagues would answer that has been my dream all along. Yeah, this is what I wanted to be when I went to school or university. This is why I studied this and that. For me, it was a coincidence. Yeah. The funny thing was when I applied, I had to write a motivation letter, and then I scratched my head and said, now that you apply, you want to be successful, what can you sell them as a good motivation? And of course, I used the, well, colorful curriculum vitae that I dispose of, saying somehow, I mean, I became a German at that time. That was very rare in the ministry, very conservative. Today we have people who have backgrounds from all parts of the world. But so selling, I married very young to an Algerian, a Muslim, by the way, yeah, and which was, I mean, most of the few women at that time was 4% in the group that was qualified to become ambassador or be ambassador. Today it's more, but still rather low. And so that was also already an exception and a question mark. So I turned it into a plus, saying, you know, I'm already international. I feel fine in the international arena. I swim there like a fish, but I need an anchor. And the only anchor I can think of is Germany. I was brought up in Germany from a German mother. In a way, I'm very conservative. I cook German food, yeah. I read German literature mainly. Yeah, if I have a culture of my own, it will be German one, and I think it's good. And I will need, I'm not a gypsy that's traveling around, yeah, as an adventurer. No, I want to become a civil servant, the safety, yeah. And this is what I like, and they accepted it. They said, she has both parts. She will not feel lost or be lonely or whatever when she's abroad. She's multilingual. She has how can I say, a genuine interest in different cultures, also proven through my studies. So that might fit into our scheme. But I was a very exotic person in my crew too. Yeah, that was very funny. So why did I apply for the diplomatic service? I went to industry first, and that was a very bad experience. Maybe because Bosch is metal industry, and metal industry is men. The building I worked in, there were 700 managers, out of which 2 were women. And we were the only ones who did not get a secretary when we started. We were our own secretaries. Then I was responsible, which also was provocative. I knew Arabic, Turkish, and Persian, at least a bit, yeah, and French and English. And I became responsible for Australia and New Zealand. And when they traveled to do marketing or organize conferences, they traveled without me. My male, how can I say, mates, the ones who had started with me, there was a group, they were all taken along to learn. But apparently I was there as the servicewoman, and this was against my pride. And deep down, I wanted to explode. And I said, look, if you don't want me, if you don't need me, I go. I take another chance. I look for something else. Oh, I sent out many applications, and nobody wanted me. Answer was, you are overqualified. Yeah? Don't you want to have a family, raise a family, you're married? And all these languages, do we really need them? I said, well, you are doing a lot of business with Arab countries, don't you need vision? Oh, no, we don't need, they speak English, yeah? And then I said, well, let's try foreign ministry. And they answered me, there is you can apply, you have 1 week, and then there will be the written test. I said, okay, I apply, no preparation. And then there will be, I passed, you know, you had 2,000 people participating, then they choose 250 to do the oral testing examinations. It's very competitive. And they invited me, and I passed the test. So I said, now that you have applied, you have to start. This is how I came to be a diplomat. This is all. But I had no alternative. I'm very honest here, yeah? No alternative at that time to make a living, yeah? I know people who were at least as talented and well prepared as I was, well formed. Ever since I have doubts if education, formal education, is the only entry door. It can be a trap because everybody around you will tell you you are overqualified. Yeah? And then you end up being a secretary and assistant. I had a secretary in Nouakchott who had a brilliant exam and knew several languages, and nobody applied her. So the only way out was to become a secretary. And everybody, I was grateful to have such a competent lady, but I felt bad because I saw her on same eye level. Yeah? And that is not only for women, but at that time for women it was even worse. There was nothing for granted. And so sometimes it's coincidences. I never regret it. I had bad times and I was frustrated, but this happens in every other profession. Now my revenge feeling is that industry in Germany is desperately trying to find women my age to put them in the boards because they have to pretend that we have no gender problem, and they don't find them because nobody brought them up. Yeah? Now they are launching women of 40 and 45 who have no qualification, which proves to everybody around that we shouldn't have too many women in business because they're not good enough. Yeah? But they never gave us a chance before. Yeah? This is a little bit, sometimes I say, I'm nasty. Yeah, you pay the price now. Yeah? I think I would have had a chance. I don't like people like civil servants. We don't make, I mean, compared to here, I'm having a very good salary, but we compared to somebody in business, it's nothing. It's chicken feed. Yeah? And many people in my ministry, diplomats, say, if I had become a manager, I would be CEO of Siemens or Daimler or something. That's bloody nonsense. The sheer numbers of those who go up to heaven in business is very low. So the statistical chances that even somebody who is excellent will make it is very low, which does not mean you can try. But if you have never tried, you cannot argue you would have. Yeah? That's no. Go for it, and then, of course, you have the crossings where you have to decide to go right, left, or straight, and maybe you take the wrong decision, but you cannot turn the wheel back and say, if, yeah? It's finished, yeah? I think this is how, very often, I think the younger generation, and especially here, it's a young system, it's a young society, you have to go forwards, yeah? You cannot have, in that sense, you cannot have everything. You have to make step-by-step decisions, and also, I think, dare to have certain ambitions, and then decide what is more important for you. Do you want to have a family? Do you want to have to stay here? Do you want to dare to go out, gain experience, leave it open if and when you come back? But be aware of the consequences of what you do. Yeah, for me, being a civil servant, as I said, that's very special in Germany, is a privileged position because you cannot, unless you steal silverware, you cannot get kicked out. Yeah, you have a safety. Even if you get sick, you have a life insurance, so to say, and you might even have a good place to work at. And if not so, at least you get your monthly salary. Yeah, you're fine. And that is a value of itself. That's very German, maybe, security. Yeah? I'm not a gambler. Other people are, but here you don't have that choice, so you can also risk to gamble a bit. What do you have to, always ask yourself, what do I have to lose? And what can I win? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, you can have, and a small life can be a good life. Yeah? We were in Dallas recently and met some of these first, or the descendants of the first German immigrants. Oh, that's such a modest life. I would, even in Germany, you would call them poor. They gave me the impression that they're very happy where they are. Isn't that important? Do they need a big car? Do they need to travel around the world? If they are happy with their garden and their children and their neighbors, fine. Yeah? Many people are forced to leave nowadays, refugees, out of political circumstances that they have not created. They are victims to developments. We so far have had the wonderful, let's say, privilege to not be threatened. Yeah? And even if we drop out because we get sick, normally we have many ways to, or opportunities to get support. We don't have the family support, so, and in COVID times, we felt it, yeah? And many people realized that our modern independent life meant loneliness in the end, yeah? That we had nobody, not having children, nobody to care, no? Nobody coming. That's very tough, and I think many young people now change. It's interesting that the young generation now dares more to bring up children in less comfortable or times, less stable times than my generation did. We were just spoiled, comfort. Child means extra work, less sleep, less finances to afford luxuries like traveling. And later we have a security system. They will take care of me, a pension or something. But what it means to have somebody who cares, who calls you, asks how you are, everybody forgot. They are now realizing, and I think the young ones got the lesson. Yeah? It was young people who took care of old people without family. It was not the people of my age bracket who might have more time and more money. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Altanay. I'm an undergraduate international relations student, and I want to ask you the question. You mentioned that Germans want to change everything by not changing anything at the same time. But what I noticed is that you had your ambassadorship in politically unstable countries such as Mauritania and Chad, and Kyrgyzstan, which is actually also considered to be the most politically unstable country in Central Asia. And my question is, how do changes in political shifts, for example, after revolutions and coups, affect the work of embassies? Thank you so much.
Well, we move in a protected zone, de facto and de jure. We are always protected by immunities and special safety structures, privileges. What can happen, and I observed it in several countries, that you are forced to leave the country, move out, but you will get a plane to take you out and even get your belongings moved in best case. Sometimes now the situation is such that people lose their furniture or whatever, which is a little bit tough. But well, like when Libya fell, they had problems bringing out people and their dogs and animals and everything, and went through the press how cruel this was to the children of the family to leave the shepherd dog behind. I mean, I have dogs, I would feel the same, but this is, I mean, the smallest problem if you consider what happens to the rest of the people who cannot move out and not being thrown out comfortably, both into a nice hotel elsewhere until they find a new house. And yes, in general, I feel like the captain on board a ship. Yeah, when I have, especially at the head of mission, we have to be here to help assist our compatriots in case of instability. There is always security implied. It might be a danger for life for many. How can you how can you get them out? How can you get papers if needed, whatever? And then, of course, in order to judge the situation, which is floating, you don't know what's going to happen, like last time. Is there going to be a lot of bloodshed? Will there be shooting? Can you leave the apartments? And for your own stuff. And then in order to allow decision-making for those who are very far away, like we report to our government. What happens? Observation. And now I read the reports of my colleagues in countries that are under stress. Yeah, I had this situation in Cyprus in 2013 when the country went bankrupt and needed support. And the government didn't bring about the decisions needing on the time scale, because in order to get money, you have decision-making processes and so. And they were at the brink of being kicked out of the Eurozone and not having any money. And people could not get more than 20 euros per day from the cash machines. Yeah, banks were closed. Yeah, desperate situation. We were kind of comfortable in the embassy. We had stocked cash money. We had our supplies, etc. And in the end, we could have loaned out. But for the country, it was desperate. So the German government put a lot of pressure. This is a little bit also a diplomatic game, the bad cop and the good cop. So apparently in Europe, they said Germany, which has a reputation of being a little bit strict and disciplined, the German Minister of Finance must tell them, you know, if you do not follow our advices, recommendations, you are kicked out of the Eurozone. Game was clear. Greece did not obey. Small Cyprus, not good, but we could have set a precedence, and then Greece maybe would have followed our recommendations. So it was really a very tight schedule, tight situation. So some political forces went against Germany, and they became very aggressive. we had a big demonstration, and they went to the embassy, climbed up the building, pulled down the flag, and burned it. Everybody very upset. All the agencies reported Berlin was under pressure. First reaction was cool down. We are all safe at home. Nobody is in the embassy building. Yeah, I'm going to run the embassy business from the residence. I have a big dining room, and we will assemble there in the morning, and then somehow work, home office, whatever. And we are not threatened here. And they accepted, but they said, decide who is going to leave. Yeah, reduce the staff. And within a week, half of my colleagues left. Yeah, that was, and then situation calmed down again. We returned, blah blah, and they managed also to handle the crisis in a way. And the emotions went down. People got more money, and they said, "Okay, we are going back to normality, etc." Pp. This was just a glimpse of what can happen, and it went relatively smooth. Now, in other countries, it can become a lot more dangerous. Sudan, all of a sudden, you have a rebel group that has an army as strong as the national army, starts attacking or trying to overthrow the government. And it becomes pretty clear. Either they are immediately successful, or you have a bloody civil war continuing. Yeah? Everybody inside, they did not even know how to evacuate the hundreds and thousands of expats in Khartoum. Finally, they managed, but they had no side to address. They had an official government that was failing, but not weak enough to tumble for good. Yeah? So this is very difficult situations, of course. Situation here, I want to tell you that it's completely different. Instability, even though there was bloodshed, is not comparable to what happened elsewhere. Don't be too pessimistic. It's not good, and it will throw a shadow on normality of interchange, exchange, yeah, relations. But you know, even I consider it as positive. You say it's considered the most unstable country in the region. I'm not so sure. Very short-term thinking. You have had several rebellions, but this proves also resilience of the population. This is real democracy. When you are fed up, you say no. Even the president argues when we tell him you are going to be too authoritarian. He says, I know my limits because the people would never tolerate a dictator. Yeah? Which is good. If we go for democracy, this is also inclusive. I mean, many people, and I understand, I have more important things to do than to get engaged in politics. Yeah, I have to, cultivate my fields and get my kids through school. They are affected, but they do not feel they really have an impact. So they might not go to elections and participate and vote. But all in all, there is a certain pride, there is a certain individual judgment on how things should not be. And they will pull the brake, and I think this is positive. Now look at a country like Turkmenistan. I've never been there, but our ambassador has been a friend of mine for a long time, and we exchanged a little bit. This is a little bit Koshmaresque. Yeah? Why? Because people do not even know how to think anymore. Yeah? It's not that there are continuous threat of torture, of being, no, they just become systems or figures on a chessboard. Life might not be bad, but is this stability? Who is going to run the country if something changes? Who is going to take the lead? Who's learned to make decisions upon what? Then very often in many systems that this is also the case. For Europe, Chad it's grotesque, the anchor of stability. It is not. It's hell. Yeah? It's a boiling kettle. One day it will explode. And publicly I say it's not going to take a long time until Sudan and with all this neighborhood too, it spills over. And who is going then to, they have no opposition left. Yeah, it's all streamlined. Here it's different. You have a very vivid, colorful, active civil society. Yeah? I do not want now to challenge you and tell you go into politics. No, do what you are doing. Yeah? Keep a clear mind. Yeah, a critical mind. You might not go public with your opinions, but don't let them take away the freedom in your minds. Yeah? Your ambitions, your interests, your curiosity, your questions. Yeah? Even if public school system is bad, you will manage to raise decent children if you want so. Yeah? There is ways and means, a billion, and by the way, the access to internet, media, you can get so many things out of it. Yeah, you can learn so many things. You can connect, you can meet. There is no country will be able to control all of this if you don't let them do so. And here is this freedom of thinking, very strong still. We are all subject to influences. I don't know what is true, what is fake, what is propaganda. Of course, I learned through my life to be skeptical and maybe recognize signals that show me something is fishy. But do I know the truth, even if I understand this is not the truth? No, I don't. Yeah? We are flooded with information. Nobody can digest informations. Yeah? Even I think if you dare to try to be honest to yourself, which includes a firm judgment on the people you come across, yeah? What is good and what is not. Like I tell you, role models definitely should be good guys, yeah, but not naive guys. Huh? So I think you have a perspective wherever you are, in which society ever you are, even in the most darkest corners of the African continent. I saw this, yeah. But there's very few who have the skills, and in part it's skills, yeah. It's human resources, and it's a very, I mean, a blend, a very broad blend of things you learn in life. It's not necessarily what you learn in school. Sometimes people who have come out of a very bad school system still manage to learn a lot on their own by observing, by accumulating. This is linked to curiosity. Yeah? Ask the questions. You can never get answers if you don't ask questions. You might not get an answer for a long time or not get the right answer. But without questions, you will not improve. This is the same thing also for system. In that sense, I think I'm not so sure if this country is the most unstable one. It's a transition phase, yeah, boiling, bloop, 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 and then a very nice plate might come out of it in the end, as long as you have. And even if the space for civil society is rejected, that might make you more creative, yeah? It's not only the terms that we define as the ones you need, yeah? Adapt as the nomads do. Adapt to the climate, to the weather, to the circumstances, always trying to find opportunities.
Yeah, thank you. This is very optimistic. And I join to what you say about Kyrgyzstan. Just one last question, very traditional, that we ask all ambassadors. Certainly you've read a lot of books in your life. And which 3 books you could name as the most influential, like the books that had impact on your life, not just the books you liked, but maybe changed you in some ways?
I have read a lot of books. Yes, I have not had much time. The last, I would even dare say 20 years. And well, look, I cannot tell you the name of or title of books that when I read them left this impression to me. But when looking back, one of the books I like most, or its authors, is Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Loneliness. This blend of fiction and truth, yeah? So many things he puts in there. I like it a lot. And funnily enough, the Turkish book I like most is one of Orhan's books that are not so famous. It's called My Name is Red. It's also, it's a very small book, it's fiction, it's somebody gets killed, but it's about the clash of conservatism and modern life. It's about the clash of Muslim conservative traditions with challenges. It's very, I like it, and it's a love story at the same time. It's a very nice book. And well, I read Chingiz Aitmatov, but this is too recent. I'm at the end of my career and everything, and this falls into a huge basket of many things I read. Now let me see, this is two I like enormously. And oh, it's very difficult, there's so many good books. I love Alias Canetti when he won the Nobel Prize. This is, well, Jewish descent from the Balkans, really multilingual, grew up with some 10 languages around. Then, due to political circumstances, his mother migrated, brought him to Switzerland, where he learned German, quote, with blood tears in his eyes. He suffered a lot. All his books he wrote them in German, and very good German. And he wrote a lot about, well, actually, it was a digestion of what happened in Nazi times. The book I like best is Masses and Power. I don't know if this is the English translation, but it comes close to the German Masse und Macht. And it is about this movement that against all odds, people follow the masses, even if they understand that it's wrong. And it's lightly written. It's not heavy literature. It's not very political. It's just, it makes you feel what happens. But there is so many good books. Interesting, he was not German, yeah, but he published in German. But I advise you to read a lot. All these standard classic books. Yeah, it's also the Russian authors. I love Dostoevsky, The Gambler. Huh? It's yeah. And well, much of it is placed or happening in a town, Baden-Baden, where I grew up, in the neighborhood at least, that I know. There is many good books. I mean, good literature translates, like Chingiz Aitmatov. I swear, he would have merited the Nobel Prize for his literature. Unfortunately, nobody, I don't know, proposed, or I don't know. Many nominees are a lot worse, but unfortunately, posthum, he cannot be nominated. But it's in a way, his books are a window in Kyrgyz society, Kyrgyz history, Kyrgyz mentality, yeah, with all the conflicts, yeah, and the way he describes it with so much love and so many colors, yeah, the way he describes, I mean, a horse dying and remembering times, like, yeah, memorizing this like a person. This is wonderful literature, yeah, and also until details, yeah. The snow leopard. This animal, yeah, approaching its end, it's also like a human being, yeah. It's marvelous. It's very good books, but and then you can discover also. I strongly advise you also modern 20th century literature in Germany sometimes is heavy to digest, but there is a lot of good books like Heinrich Böll, Günter Grass is a bit. Don't take the ones that are called very modern, yeah. Thomas Mann is wonderful, yeah. And read Heinrich Mann about what this is more or less the Second World War phase, or even the First World War phase, the way Germans admired authority. There is one phrase when a young boy is watching the Kaiser, the emperor, pass by, and he doesn't come, and it's hot and dusty. And finally he comes and everybody's almost fainting, no drinks, no nothing, having waited for 6 hours or so. And then the boy says, "Oh, it was so wonderful to swallow the dust from the hooves of the emperor's horse." What is wonderful about that? yeah. But the way he describes such a simplicity, yeah, and the feelings the people had get across. You can, yeah, you can put yourself into the place, even if it with a certain disgust. No? And there is this is very political too. But and it's funny because his brother Thomas Mann was completely different, yeah, and also many things. And then you can also, like when you are in Germany, look at arts, yeah, pictures, yeah, drawn at that time. It presses a lot about changes in society and problems, etc., etc. But reading is good, and very often access might be through a film. Many books have been used then, and it's not exactly the same, but it also helps. Yeah, sometimes you have subtitles, but there is so many famous books that have been or whatever they delivered the scripts for films also. And even newer literature, there is nice things you can discover. There is a lot of literature about Second World War, make you cry sometimes. There is one that became famous that is, how I would translate it, somebody who is reading for you. And the point is that a young boy in school falls in love with a lady who is a lot elder, and they start a relationship. And when they are together, she always asks him to read for her. And later he realizes that that lady had never learned reading, which he couldn't imagine, yeah? And that she had served as a guard in a concentration camp, yeah? And she was also tried and put to jail, and then he's watching also the time. It's a very moving book about what the boy feels and how shocked he is about many things, yeah? And also this very weird and awkward relationship, of course, kept discreet. And there's many books, yeah? And I wouldn't reduce it to 3. Right?
Yeah. But I mean, just the first 3 that come to mind. And thank you. Yeah, I love 20th century German authors, especially like Gesse. Also, of course, Remark. Everyone in Kyrgyzstan has read Remark, first of all. And thank you. This was a lot of information to digest, and very useful and practical information. Thank you. Sometimes you talk to diplomats and you feel they are too diplomatic, and you kind of don't get any answers to the questions. You get words but not answers. And today I think it was like sometimes shockingly sincere, and especially when you criticized the European politics. And yeah, thank you for reminding us that it could have been much worse here. And sometimes we just compare with something with the ideal that we have in our minds, but yeah, this broader perspective is very useful. Thank you very much. We have a small gift for you for the memory of this event. It's a hoodie, yeah. I hope the size fits, yeah. But thank you.
I'm not putting it on because it's
Yeah, but
today.
I hope for the mountains. It's the Ololo, another way of writing Ololo. So Ololo is. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Yeah, if you want to make photos, it's now the right time.